You checked your bank account this week, and the number was smaller than it should be for how hard you have been working. You did not overspend on anything dramatic. Nothing broke, nothing went wrong. The number is just smaller than it should be. Meanwhile, the news is telling you the economy grew 2.8% last year. GDP at $29 trillion, stock market at record highs, unemployment low, every official number pointing up. And you are sitting here wondering why none of that showed up in your account. Here is what I want you to understand before this video is over. Both of those things are true at the same time. The economy genuinely grew, and your account genuinely did not reflect it. That is not a contradiction. That is the whole story. Because the economy growing and you participating in that growth are two completely different things, and the official report is not required to tell you which one is happening to you. GDP does not measure who gets the money. It measures how much money moved. Total transactions, total output, the whole building averaged together and reported as one number. When corporate profits grew by $281 billion in a single year, that goes into GDP. When home values across the country doubled in a decade, that goes into GDP. When the stock market delivered 308% total return over 10 years, that goes into GDP. Every one of those numbers gets folded into the same report that gets announced on the news as the economy is doing well. But if you do not own the home, if you do not own the stocks, if your income comes entirely from wages, you lived through the same GDP growth as everyone else and captured almost none of what it produced. The economy is not lying to you. It is just not describing you. I'm Cole, and what the GDP report does not tell you is which economy you are actually living inside. This video is going to show you exactly what that report measures, what it leaves out, and the specific moves that get you from the economy being described to the one actually producing wealth, because those are two different economies running simultaneously inside the same country right now. Here is what the data actually shows. Real median household income in 2024 was $83,730. The Census Bureau released that number in September 2025, statistically unchanged from $82,690 in 2023, barely above $83,260 in 2019. 5 years of GDP growth, 5 years of official economic expansion, zero measurable improvement in the median household's actual income. The economy grew, your paycheck did not move, and you are not imagining it. Now look at what did move. The median home price in 2015 was $209,000. By 2025, it sits at approximately $408,000. The Case-Shiller National Home Price Index confirms roughly 96% appreciation over that decade. From January 2015 to January 2025, the S&P 500 delivered 308% total return with dividends reinvested. 308% in 10 years. Same economy, same GDP growth, completely different experience depending entirely on where your dollars were sitting when it happened. Here is the mechanism that produced the gap. In the early 1970s, workers captured approximately 66 cents of every dollar the American economy produced. Today, that figure is approximately 58 cents. 8 cents gone from paychecks over 50 years, while GDP kept growing, productivity kept climbing, and the official numbers kept pointing up. From 1979 to 2025, worker productivity grew approximately 90%. Average hourly compensation after inflation grew approximately 33%. The economy nearly doubled its efficiency at producing output. Workers took home about a third of what that efficiency was worth. And the money that left paychecks went somewhere. Corporate profits grew by $281 billion in 2024 alone, confirmed by the Bureau of Economic Analysis. In the same period, wages flatlined. That is not a coincidence. That is a direction. The 8 cents that left worker paychecks moved into earnings, into equity values, into the balance sheets of people who already owned assets when the growth happened. Which is why this next number should make you stop for a second. The top 10% of American households own roughly 88% of all U.S. equities. That is the Federal Reserve's own data, Q4 2024. The bottom 50% own approximately 1%. 1%. If you rounded that to the nearest whole number, it would be 0. So when a politician points to the stock market as proof the economy is working, they are describing a performance that the bottom half of the country was essentially not present for. 58% of Americans do technically own some stock, but the median holding in the bottom half is approximately $12,500. The average holding in the top 10% is $608,000. Same market, same 25% gain in 2024. That is $3,125 for the median holder in the bottom half. It is $152,000 for the average holder in the top 10%, from the exact same year in the exact same market. That is not bad luck. That is positioning. Let me show you what positioning looks like inside two real lives. Marcus and Derek. Same age, 35 in 2015. Same household income, $75,000. Same city. Both showing up, working, paying their bills. Neither one doing anything reckless by any measure. In January 2015, Marcus does two things. He opens a total market index fund and puts $20,000 in. And he buys a house at the median price, $209,000. Not a mansion, the statistically average American home at that exact moment. Derek keeps renting, does not open an investment account. His income goes to rent, groceries, transportation, life. He is not irresponsible, he is disciplined. He is just living entirely inside the wage economy, the same one that stopped growing proportionally with productivity in 1979. January 2025, 10 years later. Marcus's $20,000 in the index fund is now approximately $81,600. He did not pick stocks. He did not watch the market every morning. He put money in, left it there, and went to work. His house is now worth approximately $408,000. He paid $209,000. That is $199,000 in equity gains he did not work for. It compounded quietly while he was earning the same $75,000 salary. Combined wealth gains from two decisions made on one specific day in January 2015, approximately $261,000. Not from a promotion, not from a business, not from anything he did differently at work, from positioning inside the economy that was actually growing. Derek's wealth created over the same decade in the wage economy. He earned his salary every year and it went to living. January 2025, his financial position is functionally the same as January 2015, minus 10 years. Same GDP report described both their decades as economic growth. One of them participated in the economy being described. The other experienced the version of the economy that has been delivering workers a shrinking share of what they produce since 1979. And here's what genuinely makes me angry about this. Not frustrated, actually angry. Nobody in the systems that benefit from this arrangement has any incentive to explain it to you clearly. The financial media uses GDP as the headline because their advertisers are financial institutions whose products look better when the economy is described as healthy. Wage share of GDP declining for 50 years does not get a segment. The political establishment on both sides uses GDP, unemployment, and market levels as scorecards because those numbers respond to the policy levers they control. Median wage purchasing power does not. And the asset management industry has every incentive to keep the rising market headline front and center because their product is participation in that growth. When the S&P 500 delivers 308% in 10 years, that is the best advertisement their industry has ever run. They just do not volunteer that the median bottom half holder had $12,500 invested, meaning that entire historic decade of returns
delivered approximately $38,500 before taxes over 10 years. Nobody in that system profits from what this video just told you.
And before you say, well, if I had just worked harder, made smarter choices, saved more, the Census Bureau's own data says median household income grew 1.1% after inflation from 2019 to 2024, over 5 years of economic growth. If you feel like your paycheck is not keeping up with what the economy is producing, it is not. The data confirms it. That feeling is not a personal failing. It is an accurate reading of your position inside a system that stopped sharing productivity gains with workers more than 40 years ago. Here is the framework that explains why this is structural and not accidental, and it comes from one of the most cited economics books of the last 2 decades. French economist Thomas Piketty spent years building a historical data set going back centuries to answer one question: when does wealth concentrate and when does it spread? His finding, documented in Capital in the 21st Century, is this: when the return on capital consistently exceeds the rate of economic growth, wealth concentrates in the hands of capital owners faster than the economy can distribute it to workers. In plain English, money that is already invested grows faster than the economy your paycheck depends on. His research puts the historical return on capital at approximately 4 to 5% annually, long-run GDP growth in developed economies at approximately 1.5%. That gap is what he argues drives concentration, not as a policy failure, not as a moral failing, but as a mathematical outcome of those two numbers existing simultaneously. Now, look at what those numbers look like in America. From 1979 to 2025, the S&P 500 returned roughly 10% per year. GDP grew roughly 2.5% per year. The equity market alone ran at 4 times the rate of economic growth for more than 4 decades. Piketty's mechanism did not just apply here, it was amplified here. And the result is exactly what the Federal Reserve's own balance sheet data shows: the top 10% owning 88% of equities, while the bottom 50% own the 1%. 2 economies, 1 country. GDP reports the average. You live in one of them. And every financial decision you make either keeps you where you are or starts moving you toward the other one. If you want to keep seeing the gap between what the official number says and what your bank account confirms, subscribe to Cold Capital. No financial products, no strategies I get paid to recommend, just the numbers the headline leaves out. So here's how the migration starts, not a 5-year plan, this week. If your employer offers a 401k match and you are not capturing the full match, that's the first move. Whatever your employer matches, whether it's 50 cents on the dollar or dollar for dollar, that return is guaranteed before a single dollar of market performance touches your account. Nothing in the wage economy offers you that. Log into your benefits portal today and increase your contribution to at least the match threshold. That one action moves you from purely inside the wage economy to partially inside the asset economy, starting with your next paycheck. Once that account is open, put what's inside it into a total market index fund, something like Vanguard's VTI, near zero cost at 3 cents for every $1,000 you invest per year. Automatically reinvests dividends, tracks the same market that returned 308% from January 2015 to January 2025. Not because the next decade is guaranteed to repeat that. It is not. But because this is the vehicle that positions you inside the asset economy instead of watching it from the outside. If your situation right now is high-interest debt, a credit card at whatever your rate is, 20%, 22% higher, pay that first. Eliminating a 22% interest rate is a guaranteed 22% return. The index fund cannot promise you that. Clear the debt, open the account, fund it, and leave it alone. And Derek, if you are Derek right now, the door Marcus walked through in January 2015 did not close. It just got more expensive to enter. The index fund is still open. The match is still available. The asset economy is not invitation only. It just requires a specific decision that the wage economy never forces you to make. On homeownership, the median home doubling from $209,000 to $408,000 over 10 years is real, and those gains are real. But buying a home that requires 50% of your income to service
is not asset economy participation. It's wage economy consumption at a higher price point with a mortgage attached. Run your specific market numbers. Ownership is the entry point. Overpaying to own is not. There is no award for working hard inside an economy that quietly redirected your productivity gains somewhere else. The thermostat in the lobby reads 68 degrees. The lobby is 72. The server room is 58. The thermostat is not lying. It's reading the average of the building accurately. But if you're in the server room and someone tells you the building is a comfortable 68 degrees, that information is accurate and completely useless to you at the same time. GDP is the thermostat in the lobby. Since 1970, labor's share of the American economy has fallen from approximately 66 cents of every dollar produced to approximately 58 cents, and the 8 cents that left workers' paychecks did not disappear. It moved to corporate profits and asset returns, which is exactly why the economy keeps growing and your paycheck keeps not. Now here's the part that makes that worse. Most people watching this are also carrying debt. And debt is not a separate problem from everything we just covered. It's the same system running a different program on your paycheck. Every minimum payment you make is another month your money is working for someone else's asset economy instead of yours. I broke down exactly how that works, the specific mechanism, the specific numbers, the specific way out in the video right there. Watch that next.